It is my great pleasure to introduce this afternoon our next customer speaker, which is going to be Visma. Visma is a Norwegian headquartered software giant, I might say. And for a good number of years, they are using MicroStrategy now as an enterprise BI capability, mostly for the municipalities in Norway. We have two presenters today. One is Alex Listad, Director of Cloud and Engineering, and spending most of his time helping the various Visma companies to adopt cloud. And we also have Carlos Canales, who is the Group Manager and Service Owner of Enterprise BI for Visma. Please, Carlos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dick, for the introduction. Many of you may know of our company through the Jumbo Visma biking team, but well, Visma is a little more than the top performing bikers and ice skaters around Europe. In Visma, what we would say, we're proud to say that we are shaping the future of society through technology. So we provide mission critical software and solutions to help our customers grow and help them stay compliant with a number of local laws and regulations. Some of the areas you may have heard of Visma are within school administration, welfare technology, digital invoicing, and others. So what we do is we simplify and automate complex processes within areas like accounting, HRM, financial management, and other core areas within management for municipality sectors and local governments. We are amongst the top 5 companies, software companies in Europe, in the EU, and also the #1 cloud ERP in Europe. Our presence also expands to Latin America and R&D across borders. Now, some of the key figures on Visma, we have a local strong presence with over 150 locations, giving us a diverse team of colleagues with local knowledge. And we have about 13,000 employees, including 4,500 software developers who are highly engaged. And when I say highly engaged, we measure constantly employee engagement through monthly surveys on topics such as inclusion, well-being, and individual development. So something that we're proud to say is that over a third of our employees are women, and that's more than double than the average in the tech industry. Now, to tell you a little bit about the history and on our partnership with MicroStrategy, it dates back before 2015. But at that time, there was an interesting situation in Norway. So the analytics offering of the within the Norwegian municipality sector was driven primarily by high project costs, massive maintenance, and staff dependency. So some people in Visma saw an opportunity. There was cloud, there was community that demanded BI services, and also there was an internal competency within MicroStrategy in Visma. So my predecessor, Christian Berg, who was the project manager for the solution that we have today, and most of the team members that are still today in the development team have developed what we have today, and some of what you will see today. So why was MicroStrategy chosen? It was secure, reliable, it is secure, scalable, easy to maintain, unified architecture, and reusable metadata. Some of these top scorings that you see in business in use cases for the Gartner quadrant still active today. So if I go back a little bit, I fetched some of the slides here from the archive, from some project management slide deck. Here is one of those slides, and we can see that within 6 months from kickoff to launch, the product was live. Today, we have over 80 customers and more than 4,000 users. Now, without MicroStrategy's strong governance model, this would not have been possible in such a short period of time. So security and governance was key in choosing MicroStrategy. Now, MicroStrategy is still #1 today in enterprise analytics. We see in the latest Gartner report when it comes to enterprise use case, and also its strong governance and security again allows us to have a competitive, competitive multi-tenant deployment, because we have both customers that have on-prem and customers that are on the cloud solution. Now, this is how our ERP looks like. This is the enterprise ERP, and you see in it the embedded, couple of embedded KPIs from MicroStrategy. This is the landing page, and we also have a module that is that has a BI, I would say, area where you can navigate throughout the BI solutions and BI dashboards that depict many of the areas of the ERP, like again, procurement, HRM, finance, and stuff like that. Now, this is the quality management system tool at Visma. It is quite comprehensive and includes frameworks in all areas from sales, finance, human resources, planning, etc. Today, we will talk about two frameworks, one within product development, you see on the right-hand side, and one within operations and monitoring. Now, the smallest of these two frameworks, yet very relevant for business intelligence, is visualization. And of course, if we had more time, I would talk about many other frameworks within all those areas that I mentioned, but we'll focus on two today. So one is visualization. Again, looking at the loop, starting from this QMS loop within project design, we take into account multiple dimensions and branding. For example, advocacy and community, language and tooling, UX Studio, and so forth. Now, from there, we have a UX value loop consisting of 6 steps. Then, within one of those steps, we used a set of principles, standards, and frameworks. That is Stephen Few's books. We use also some one that Presto's BI dashboard design framework from a professor in university in Norway, and also from International Business Communication Standards, or also known as IBCS. And by the way, we know that MicroStrategy, there's a plugin called Vitara Charts that is IBCS certified. So there is a data visualization butterfly effect emerging from the QMS into that has an impact in what we do. And you can see here different dashboards, and you probably identify some of the principles and frameworks that you see from emerging from these authors, if you know some of them or all of them in it. Now, if I take one example, for example, the Presto framework, we ask questions like, do colors have a meaning? Do all colors have a meaning? And also this is, do you find in the IBCS? Are they in line with our UX guidelines, including color blindness simulators that we use for testing the visualization? Is the dashboard cross-visually interactive? How far can you drill down? Does the content in the support panel include all the necessary context for the end users, and so forth? So we use at least a minimum of 7 questions if you use this specific framework, and then tons of other checkpoints from those principles, both from Stephen Few and also from the standards in IBCS. Now, I could spend a lot more talking about visualization, but I would like to now move to cloud delivery. Now, this is the greater of these two frameworks, and I'm proud to have my colleague Alexander, who can explain a little bit more in detail.
Thank you, Carlos. I will share my screen. So Enterprise BI is developed, delivered, and operated according to what we call the Visma Cloud Delivery Model. And this is our way of developing, delivering, and operating cloud software in Visma. There's about 80 teams and products in Visma using this model today. Enterprise BI is one of them. So this model is an expression, a description, and an it's an implementation of how we want to be organized. Like, how do we organize our product development in the most effective way? It's about how do we work when it comes to development and testing and deployment and monitoring and handling incidents and everything in between. It's about how we use technology in the software we make and what kind of technical requirements we want, we expect, and what our customers expect in our software. Another benefit of having this type of model that is implemented across a large part of the organization is that we can certify the model, and as long as we have a good systems for following up on the model and on compliance and so on, you get a lot of certifications as a consequence of working in a good way, not because you have designed your processes to specifically be for a particular certification. So right now we have ISO 9001, 27001, and we will have ISAE 3402 type 1 after, in the very near future. Now, one of the core principles of this model is Devops. And before, people, organizations might have had separation between development and testing. If you go back in time, that was not uncommon. Still, a lot of organizations have a separation between development and operations. And there are other silos like this as well. In some cases, security is not necessarily an integral part of product development. In some organizations, it's something that people might add on kind of after the fact or as an afterthought. But in the Visma Cloud Delivery Model based on Devops, we design our product development team so that they have very well-defined ownership and end-to-end ownership for a defined scope. So one team has the competence about development, about operations, about security, about everything you need to develop, deliver, and operate cloud software in a successful way. Another thing that we care a lot about, some of you will be familiar with the Accelerate research and the State of DevOps reports. They talk about how software delivery and operational performance, these metrics in particular, correlate strongly with organizational performance and commercial performance. So across of these 80 teams and products, and growing over time, of course, we measure these things automatically. So we can know, what is the lead time of Enterprise BI or any other product in Visma? How frequently are we delivering new software to production to our customers? What's the change failure rate? How reliable is our service, etc.? Because this is built into the processes that are used by all of these teams. So we can then use this to inform the continuous improvement of our own processes, right? To make sure that how we develop software, not just the software itself, but also how we work, is something that we can optimize over time. Now, in this model, we have an architecture and technology program that also all of these 80 teams and products follow. And there's a combination here of a lot of guidance and support, and also requirements, because there are some things we want and need to be true for all of our software, including Enterprise BI. So of course, we don't have time to go through all of this, but as an example, in the continuous delivery assessment, which every team does a self-assessment of every year, a team will sit down and think, okay, what do we have the capabilities we need to deliver value to our customers quickly and frequently? Do we have automated testing, automated deployments, automated infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera? We have similar tools in other areas, right? The API assessment is about how do you develop an API that is enjoyable to integrate with. From a technology point of view, from a security point of view, from a documentation point of view, also some legal and commercial aspects. So it's kind of a checklist and support for our teams, kind of not to forget important things. We can drill down into things where teams might need or request more assistance. So every team revisits these types of self-assessments, and also there's a there's a little bit of peer review in this as well every year. And we have the same thing for security. There are lots of security tools that we offer in Visma to our teams and companies, and Enterprise BI, as many others, uses these tools on a daily basis in many cases. Right? We would check that the software that we include in our offering, third-party components like MicroStrategy or ORM libraries or anything else, that is secure. And we have tools that will check that the code that we write is secure. And the metrics from all of these assessments and the tools can be overwhelming, right? There's lots of metrics, lots of results and outputs, things to follow up on. So how do you get an overview of all of these things? And that's where we have an internally developed system that we call the Visma Maturity Indexes that basically summarizes the state or the maturity in different areas. So for all of these 80 teams and services that I've been talking about, in Visma, if you're a Visma employee, you can go into the system and see, okay, Enterprise BI, their ambition is to be on platinum level on security. And the measurement says that, okay, they are on platinum level. They have done the self-assessments, issues might have been identified, but then they might have been resolved, right? So we see that we have a sufficient and appropriate level of security or maturity in terms of architecture and technology, right? We measure this in different domains. So if to summarize my part here, in the Visma Cloud Delivery Model, we set the high standard for how we work when we do product development in Visma. We set the high standard when it comes to the software that we produce and how we deliver it and operate it as well. There's a lot of support provided to the teams that do the development, delivery, and operations of our different products. And we have found MicroStrategy compatible with all of those principles and requirements that and practices that we have. Now, if this sounds interesting at all, I would encourage you to go to YouTube, search for Visma Devops, and you'll find this 40-minute video where I go into more details about this. So hopefully you found that interesting, and I'll send you back over to Carlos.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And I'm sure we will probably have time for questions to Alex at the end of this presentation. So to summarize a little bit, or to set things into perspective from my side as a service owner, who needs to comply within the VCDM framework, the maturity index, which helps us comply with the demanding software and operational performance requirements in Visma, has approximately 120 maturity points. So we go through 8 annual reviews or assessments, and we have continuous alert-based monitoring. Without this shield, I must say that we would not be able to ensure the secure, reliable, performant, and responsive BI service that we have in the sustainable manner that is demanded by our customers. Now, and we're happy that MicroStrategy, as Alex said, meets or in some cases exceed these rigorous requirements. It is great from the backend point of view, from the robustness point of view of the solution. Now, if I think of the impact, ultimately, that's the impact is of all these frameworks is what counts for us. And I'll take a quote here from Stephen Few when he says the real value of a graph lies in the decisions being made from its content. So we produce graphs, we produce analytics from the BI solution. If we think of the input of the very first code line written by MicroStrategy developers, through the output and the outcome of all the way we do. But then how do we think about the impact of what we do? Normally, this is, for example, a dashboard embedded in the ERP that we have used by local governments or municipality. So we ask, are we helping that municipality in the decision process of building a new nursing home? This type of questions we ask to think about the impact of what we do. In some cases, the answer is yes. Are we helping that kindergarten see if they will be short in staff, for instance, within the next 2 weeks so that they can act on it timely? Are we helping local governments monitor environmental targets to preserve our great nature? So these type of questions are really important for us to measure the impact of what we do so that our customers benefit from it. And again, using all the frameworks when it comes to visualization, when it comes to the QMS, and let alone the VCDM model. So thank you for taking the time to get to know Visma and our partnership with MicroStrategy.
Excellent, Carlos and Alex. Many thanks for this comprehensive presentation. We have indeed plenty of time to go over some questions. I know from this morning that the live discussion, the live chat will be a bit delayed. So let me start off by asking a question, maybe for Alex, but I leave that to you. What is your view on multi-tenancy, and how are you applying that in your architecture design principles or your strategy? And maybe, I mean, there's also multiple definitions of multi-tenancy, but maybe you can elaborate on this topic.
From my perspective, if I look at Visma in general, yes, we want all of our software to be multi-tenant. There's no question in my mind that the multi-tenancy is usually preferred, but then it can depend on the different domains, right? So I'll leave it to Carlos to speak specifically to the BI domain and if it's related to MicroStrategy and stuff like that. But in general in Visma, we encourage multi-tenancy a lot because it makes our life easier. Right. Yes, there are some risks but we can manage those. We generally don't want to deal with all the overhead and extra cost that comes with single tenancy if we can avoid it.
Absolutely. Okay, makes sense. Yeah. I see a question coming in. It's from Jonathan Jones. It was mentioned about automated testing and automated deployments. How much of these have got on the MicroStrategy side?
That's a good question for Carlos, probably. When you had to, think about automated testing and automated deployment, how did that work when you applied that to MicroStrategy?
Yeah, automated testing and automated deployment. We normally say in our review that we have automated all that we can automate. I wouldn't be able to say that we are automating testing on the MicroStrategy side, but we need to check a little bit more with one of our colleagues, and maybe of course I can get back to you afterwards.
Okay. There's another question here about on-premise customers. Well, we all have an heritage on-premise, of course. What is Visma's goal or aim to move all customers to the cloud, and why? When would that be achieved? That goal? How do you view that?
Yeah, so overall, I think we should talk about preferences, not timelines for all customers across all Visma products. That's not usually how we think and work in Visma. It's very dependent on the different Visma companies, the different Visma products, and the markets that they operate in. So we have very few super hard line top down things like that. Okay. In general, for the past 10-20 years, of course, there's been a transition from on-prem to cloud, and for the past 6-7 years maybe, and transition also from cloud or traditional hosting environments to public cloud.
Right.
So in general, I would say if we start something new today, or if we have something that we expect to invest in and to be great for many, many years, the preference would be to move and utilize the power of public cloud platforms like AWS and Azure and Google Cloud. I think that's a critical success factor for good product development today and has been for many years. And if we cannot, or we don't want to make that investment, which might be true in some cases, of course, cloud or traditional hosting would still be much preferred over on-prem. So yeah, we have these migrations going on all the time from on-prem to cloud and from cloud to public cloud. But yeah, not necessarily a specific deadline for reaching 100% across the company. But yeah, I think we're somewhere around 90% cloud today and 10% or less on-prem across all of Visma.
Okay. But that would be then Visma's data center where you host on behalf of your customers. Would that be then the cloud, what you call cloud, or is it parts already in public cloud?
Yeah, so to me, it's a few levels, right? We can if we say single tenant on-prem, where the customer or a partner that they collaborate with manage stuff, let's call that level 1. Then of course, Visma can take over some on-prem systems. We can still have it single tenant and still kind of keep the on-prem technology, but we just host it in our data centers because we made the software, so we should be more professional at operating it, right, in general. So that's better. So let's call that level 2. Then level 3 is maybe instead of having hundreds and hundreds of single tenant instances, let's make it a multi-tenant system instead. Much easier for us and much better for our customers. But we could still host that in our own data center. Let's call that level 3. And level 4 then would be multi-tenant, but on a public cloud platform that has all the capabilities that comes with that.
Yeah. And what would be the main driver? What would be the main drivers for all of this? I have an idea, of course, but I would like to hear your view on that.
Well, my favorite driver is how it allows us to change how we work. It is so much easier to modernize how we work with software development, product development, how we deliver and operate the software. When basically the higher on that scale you are. Like if you're on-prem in a customer-controlled environment, you're really limited, right? You don't have access to customer data to analyze what you should build next. You don't have telemetry. Customers might be on old versions, which could be a security issue. You're in a straitjacket. But yeah, if you're in if you have a multi-tenant system on public cloud, well then you can take advantage of so many things, right? You can, as we talked about Devops earlier, like one team can control everything. There's not 500 instances out there controlled by other people. So you have full insight, full control. You can take good decisions. You can be more effective. You can automate everything much easier. So it's just a whole different world. So the fact of, the more modern, the higher you are on this scale that I'm talking about, the easier it is to modernize the product, and the easier it is to modernize how you work.
Yeah. And accelerate innovation, of course. And there's, of course, also the economical factor, I can imagine. At some point you're done scaling on premise, I sometimes say, and you need to find other physical places where you can scale further.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe for Carlos, and that's more specific to, I think, the enterprise BI solution you have built with MicroStrategy. What kind of data volumes are we talking about here? What kind of metrics do you have there?
I would say it's difficult.
You mentioned 80 customers and some 4,000 users, if I remember.
Yeah. So what type of statistics are we talking about? In gigabytes, in terabytes, or in areas? I normally like to talk a little bit more about areas, because the areas is what tells you a little bit also about the the importance of having more data or less data. If we talk about HRM, for example, HR statistics, we have a very detailed information, which demands, of course, GDPR and all these things. So it's the amount of data is huge. That enables us to create a lot more insights that we didn't know before. So we have in procurement, for example, within financial management, also resource planning. So it's and the processing it's well handled, I would say, by MicroStrategy. So it's the magnitude is not as important as the type of data that we have. Yeah.
Right. And what about data quality? What do you have in place to enforce or achieve proper data quality? Is that an issue?
We have the luxury that our at the ERP level, there is a lot of checks already to ensure that the data quality is high. Having said that, you always have exceptions, filterings, and that need to be done. So I think the data as such has high quality, but the knowledge, the local knowledge that you need to apply in order to ensure that the exception handling is taken care of before you ship something to production, that is the more integral, the more tricky part. In some cases, our product development is slightly delayed because we need to go through very thick manuals from local regulations to ensure what to exclude, what to include, and therefore the data quality is not questioned. And as I mentioned in one of the slides where we talk about the context, which context is this? Is this the regulation issued in 2020 or the latest regulation issued in 2021? Is it in line with the Norwegian Association of Workers? Is it in line with the social services? And what do we want to display? For instance, sick leave. Do we want to display the sick leave as the formula as stated by the social service, or the formula as stated as the union, even the local union for that municipality? So I would say that the data quality is not bad, but the logic that and the local knowledge that needs to be applied is what determines whether you end up with a good product or a bad product.
Right. And I guess that's typical for HR, and then also HR in the public sector. That's maybe a double dip almost.
It's very important. Yeah, we're talking about refunds, for example. Many things, especially nowadays with the situation, there's a lot of new regulations and exceptions being applied constantly.
Yeah. We have a few more minutes, and I have another question here. I think also for Carlos, but feel free. So your end users are not in Visma, they are with the end customer, which is the municipality.
That is correct.
What do you have in place to collect requirements or desired business outcomes from the end users? And then I'm thinking about the analytics part, of course, the MicroStrategy part. How do you organize that?
Yeah, Visma, when I joined Visma back in 2019, I was very positively surprised when I discovered that the consultants that we have, what we call consultants, the role consultants, they are professionals with extensive experience from the domain in which we are in. For example, if we talk about consultants within the economy team towards the local governments, they have been the economy director of a municipality for 15 years, for example. So the requirements that we get is through these consultants that we have, and they are very quick into understanding the needs. Sometimes we don't even need to go to the customer before we show them a nice product. An analogy I like to do is to say is that, for example, sometimes you go to IKEA and you find the product that you desperately need, but you didn't know it didn't even exist until the time that you got there. So that's what sometimes happens to us, that we have a highly experienced consultants who are helping us find good insights in the data that we have. And then we go to the customer and show them, hey, look at this. And then they didn't know that it existed, but we apply the metrics, or we apply the relationships between data sets that nobody had tried before.
Right.
Having said that, of course, we have pilot customers, and also we use technology. We have a community webpage where customers can log in ideas, and then they have a vote. We have a voting system, and then if there is a lot of likes, then we take into account those that have a lot of likes, and or those that we see of strategic importance for the customer or needed for the customer, and then there is a product advisory board that discusses this, and value chain meetings that we discuss these things and prioritize the development. Yeah. Okay. Of course, when it comes to security and things like that, that's the priority. But luckily, we rarely have these issues coming from the customers, if at all.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. We have time for one more question. Looking at the time, also, perhaps. A sneak preview into the future in terms of roadmap. What do you have on the roadmap when it comes to analytics? And also, MicroStrategy has its open architecture, meaning you can also hook up other front-end technology into the semantic layer. Is that something you see of value for your broad range of customers?
Yeah. Well, on the latter part you mentioned, the MicroStrategy side, I think we would need a little bit more extensive explanation of that, because I didn't catch that. Okay. But from the business perspective, our intention is to grow in number of customers, of course, and that always. And also at the county level, we are expanding the services to the county level, even though there's much less counties than the number of municipalities. But we see a need on that. Resource management, we are soon launching a resource management BI dashboards, and I think we want to expand on that. Okay,
excellent. Well, just to quickly revisit the other part of the question, with open architecture, we mean that your customers might have multiple BI tools, front-end tools in use. We can actually make all those users, all those front ends connect with the semantic graph of MicroStrategy.
Yeah, I see.
Enforcing, infusing more governance also when users are using Power BI or Tableau or something else.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, something that we have discovered along the way is that the BI competency is sometimes not easily found in some areas, right?
Right.
So our solution is embedded and is very highly used by top management in municipalities. So not always do we expect that the customers will do a lot on their own to connect data from different sources, from other BI solutions, for instance.
Got it.
For the time being, we of course, embedded analytics is what we aim to focus on more than allowing customers, because there is that level of competency needed, and the decisions that are being made are so delicate that if there is something that has happened, something has been lost in translation in this data management or data modeling, with other solutions, yeah, that can be a bit risky for the decision makers.